All right. Well, thanks again. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is OWASP Los Angeles April virtual meeting, and we have real pleasure to have Andrew joining us. I'll go through a few slides introducing our chapter and what also about OWASP. So let me go forward here. Again, Andrew is going to talk about the real advantages of OWASP tools and InfoSec leaders perspective. This is our chapter leaders. Richard Grimberg recently joined back to become our president, replacing Cassio, who is stepping down after a year or so, or 2 years that he led us through the pandemic. The rest of us are just trying to help and promote OWASP as best we can and run the chapter meetings, and these are the faces with the names. Membership, OWASP, is extremely affordable if you look at other chapters of similar concepts or same industries that we are. $50 for a year. If you're a student, it's $20, so there's no excuse. Just go ahead and please become a member. Benefits are listed in there. I tried actually to join the AppSec Engineer and also the Hack Purple's AppSec Foundation Level 1 course. Really good information, good material. I really encourage you to do that. This is also, by spending that $50 a year, it would help the OWASP Foundation, which is doing, as we talked about before the meeting, a lot of great projects that you can definitely use at your work and help you get a little bit easier time doing this AppSec business. How you can follow us, OWASP LA, Twitter, YouTube channel. All the previous meetings have been recorded and they're posted in our channel, LinkedIn, and we meet at the fourth Wednesday of every month. We're looking for volunteers. We're looking for sponsorship. If you know a company that might be interested, the members are over 2,400 in our meetup, so 2,400 plus members in our meetup. And next, I didn't get a chance to update this slide, but next month, on the fourth Wednesday of the month, we'll have an in-person meeting. So just keep an eye for the meetup post, and I'll transition to Andrew. And Andrew, you have the floor.
Okay, I'm terribly sorry, folks. I knew that there was a meeting that I was supposed to talk at, and I put it up on Twitter, and my inattentive ADHD had actually forgotten to put it in the calendar, just like I was saying to them, the organizers. So I do apologize to everybody here for waiting for me. It's unacceptable, and I apologize. In the interest of time, what I'd like to do is, instead of doing slideware, I'm going to talk to you about projects, and then we're going to look at some of the projects that we've got in the context of generally what we want to do is push forward. Now, what happened to my Zoom? Okay, let me just show you what I'm talking about. Hopefully you can all see my screen. Is that turned up? Just sort of wave or put the thumbs up if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it. Yes.
Fantastic. Pretty much the beginning of every Zoom call. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen? It's one of those things. OWASP is famous for projects. If you search in Google for OWASP, the first 3 to 4 pages is just about projects, and all of our 20 plus years of history have been about projects. Now, the projects we've got, and I'm a project leader of 2 flagship projects, the OWASP Top 10 and the Application Security Verification Framework, a standard. What we want to do is start to think about how do we move the needle? Because if we look at the OWASP Top 10 and we go there and we have a look at the actual what it is and how it changed, things just slide around. We haven't actually fixed anything. There are things in here that are actually there from 2004. The very first version of the OWASP Top 10 was released in 2003, but most people don't know about that one. The problem we've got is that we haven't really made much progress. We are starting to see injections fall. And in fact, we actually had to combine cross-site scripting and normal injections, like the injection pattern itself, together to keep it in the OWASP top 10. However, that's only one of the very few successes that we've really had. So as a piece of awareness, has this actually worked? And I got to posit, as the leader of this project, maybe we haven't really helped enough. I think developers are now very aware of these things, but this stuff still appears. Possibly not as much as it used to. Like if you look at the penetration test reports of like the mid-2000s compared to now, you'll probably find out that there is a lot less findings. However, when you do find a finding, like for example, broken access control, it's still devastating. So how do we cut through? And I think this is where one of the things that we need to start thinking about our projects. I've been thinking this for a while, that essentially a lot of our stuff is good, but it's not really putting it together for the developers. It's not easily consumable by a developer on their own. If you think about an open source project with 1 or 2 contributors, even things like Log4j, we're actually in the process of assisting Log4j, and we've got to figure out how to do this at scale. We need to be able to say to Log4j, here you go, here is a coding standard, here's some training, let's take you through the training, let's have a look at your code, let's do static code analysis. We don't have a lot of this in place at the moment. In fact, this is actually a project that I'm taking particular interest in, because if we can help the top 20 or 30 libraries, frameworks, or whatever to do a great deal better, that helps millions of developers all at once. OpenSSF, which is run by the Linux Foundation, has actually managed to obtain around $10 million in funding for the Alpha Amiga project. I sit on the board of the OpenSSF as well, so I listen in on the calls and I put my 2 cents in. They are really moving forward what we should have been doing a long time ago. And I think, honestly, we need to integrate better with developers. We always say this, but we never really do. So for those of you who are familiar with the executive orders that were issued last year, it's essentially the secure supply chain, and we do have tools. And in fact, Dependency Track and the Dependency Checker, these are some of the world-class tools, and they're available for free. One of the problems we've got is that it has a lot of false positives. So we've got recently the Cyclone DX project voted to become an OWASP project, and they're now an OWASP project. Cyclone DX is an SBOM. That just simply tells you what's in your software. But if people don't use it, you don't know any better. So Dependency Track still needs some assistance. So I'm going to be participating in a secure supply chain conference held in Washington, DC in mid-May. And we really do need to work together, the OpenSSF and OWASP together, to really identify these top projects, top libraries, and start thinking about how do we close these gaps? How do we start addressing the, not just telling people that the code is bad, that the baby is ugly, but what do we do to help protect people out of the box? We actually do have some really, really cool projects, and I don't know if you've seen them all. We do have a project spotlight, and if you're a project leader, I would encourage you to get into the project spotlight. So what we need to do is make it easier for people to find the things that they want. This is an interesting thing, but it doesn't really tell you, as a developer, how do I consume this, right? And it's also a little bit out of date. We have a lot of different projects, and it's not really dynamic. So we really do need to improve in this area. We've got some great things. And one of the ones that I want to show you is the brand new version of SKF. I don't know if you've actually seen it. It is amazing. I might need to go and get the credentials. I don't know if I'm logged in. But effectively, this is like a one-stop shop for people getting training, and it's actually got some really amazing things in here. You can actually do like launch a desktop. So where is it? There's so many here, it's unbelievable. But what it normally does, let me just move you guys over there so I can actually see more of my screen. It's tiny. It actually allows you to do checklists, custom checklists for your own developers, and it uses the ASVS as a source. It actually has code examples. It actually has projects that you can set up, and you can actually do things such as, for example, it can actually run a desktop that you can run Zap inside your browser directly. And it has like direct access to training. So this is the free stuff that we have available in the Security Knowledge Framework. And SKF was given a donation by Google to develop it further, and that's moved it forward. And so one of the things that I'm going to be doing this year is setting up a fundraising program that deliberately targets work packages. So I'll be reaching out to all the project leaders very, very shortly saying, would you like to do something for your project? What would you like to do, and how soon could you achieve it if you had money? And I really want people to start doing what we've done here, which is Glenn has taken the initiative, gone to the OpenSSF, received some funding, and built the next incredible version of SKF. So, you know, what I'm trying to suggest here is that if we actually apply ourselves, get funding, and move projects forward, we'll become even more famous for being about projects. Community is incredible. We need chapters to feed the pipeline. Okay, I'm just going to copy this. Okay, so he spun up an entire machine under Kubernetes here. So we're actually seeing a different web server altogether. And, you know, just the work that Glenn's put into this is incredible. I'll let you have a look at SKF by yourselves a little bit later. Don't worry about leaving them running. They kill themselves after a little bit of time. So the reality is that this is a demo that you can use. You can set it up yourself. You'll need to set up a Kubernetes cluster to make it go, but it's certainly, if you're a larger organization, it might be very powerful. And this is just one example of our projects. I would like to go through all of our projects. Let me get this one out. We have a lot of different projects. Let me just go to OWASP. And we have a little thing here where we've got the project status. And it's really interesting to see that we're still getting new projects, which is fantastic. But one of the things is, I think the board needs some funding, some sustenance funding, just simply to say to folks who are in lab or incubator, how do you get to the next level? How do you become a flagship? And then for our flagship ones, is this actually addressing a problem developers face today? And if the answer is no, then maybe we prioritize something else that we build. For example, with the Apache thing, we want to build out an approach that we can help open source developers. And, you know, it is a little bit difficult to work with the Apache Foundation. They have, their security stuff is behind the membership barrier. And we're not an Apache members. You actually need to be invited. It's not a standard type of membership. So just working with some organizations can be very tricky from a policy and integration perspective. But because we're completely open, we can share our stuff with them very, very easily. As we develop that program, I want to be able to take it out to a wider group. So, for example, working with the folks who actually do Express, the people who do the core parts of Node.js, and similar frameworks on Java and .NET, and well, Microsoft works on .NET Core. .NET Core is actually very, very good from a security perspective. But fundamentally, what we need to do is start thinking about those projects that are architecturally and consumable directly by a developer, either because they just get it, their framework has been hardened, or alternatively, it's very, very straightforward for them to use inside their IDE. So we've got so many great projects, but there's heaps of projects that have just been like, have we even heard from people recently? It'd be really nice for us to actually start thinking about what does it mean to be an active project. We don't have any real metrics for this. And if you do try to define them, well, you know, if you say someone hasn't updated their project in 12 months, well, the OWASP top 10 only does work once every 3 years. And so for that last year prior to release, we're completely dormant. Nothing happens. It's not something we release every single year. Therefore, would we be demoted? I mean, this is one of those things that's actually really quite hard. I mean, should there be different cadences, or how do we actually manage it? Do we actually look at people who are submitting PRs and how quickly they get done? We don't have those metrics today. So I can't tell you roughly who is actually working on their project still and who has actually abandoned them. So what we would like to do is figure out what are the projects that are the most interesting ones that would help developers straight away, and are they consumable by developers as they are, or do they need some more work? And if they do, well, then we can build out packages that we can hopefully get funded. So we're going to be doing a lot of fundraising. And so if you're a project leader or know of a project that you use and you want to see improvements, do come by and suggest those projects as being things that you would like to see improved, because we need to have industry feedback as much as we need to have project leaders saying, yes, I'd like to do some stuff on my, my little project. Someone's got to fund it, and therefore it's got to be useful for the overall folks. As we start to seek more and more money, I mean, SKF is a relatively straightforward funding request because it's great already. But how do we make all the projects that deserve it great? And this is one of those things that we just don't know. We're also looking at the customer experience of starting projects. What does it mean to start a project, and how hard is it? Because our natural competitor here is actually GitHub. If you can create a project in GitHub in a few seconds and it takes you several weeks to get through us, why would you come to us? We really do need to improve the way that it actually takes to get going, how soon you can access leadership benefits, if any, and then essentially making sure that the project graduation, at the moment, the project committee actually does these, and it has historically taken a long time to go from level to level. And just simply finding out very early on, this is the things that I need to do to get to that next level and ask for an evaluation. That should be automated, and we need to work on these things because, quite frankly, if you go through a project graduation application and it gets turned down because you didn't know you had the right license or no license at all, and that's something you could fix in 5 minutes, well, you're going to be very disappointed. So let's make it easier to graduate, and let's improve the maturity of our projects. So our tools being free, like for example, dependency track, this is generally like one person. There's only a few people working on some of these really big projects that are incredible. So like you got Steve and Nicholas, and that's it. We would love to develop more community, much more community around things. We are actually in the discussions at the moment with Purple Team to adopt Purple Team as a member benefit and run that full time. But the person who actually looks after it at the moment, Kim, he's needing more assistance. So how do we develop a community of developers who are interested in chipping in? So I'll just bring up the Purple Team project. If you've not seen Purple Team, it's actually really good. And where is the demo? Kim Carter, there you go. Let's just go over here, and then there is actually a Purple Team demo. Where is it? So there's an open source version of this, and then there is a commercial version of it. Kim is essentially donating his commercial version to OWASP to run on behalf of members. But in the process, what he was looking for is more community. At the moment, I don't know that we have any easy way of identifying people who are looking around for a project and want to assist, and what would be interesting for them to assist with. We've got some very mature projects like Zap that have hundreds of starter bugs that you could work on that will take you 10 to 15 minutes to do to get you into it, but people don't seem to pick up those starter bugs. how do we start getting this process through? And I think that's a conversation that we need to have with the wider community. Because I think many of us are probably what you consider amateur coders. I certainly am. I'd love to get my hands dirty with code again, but am I the right person to help every single project? Probably not. Am I the right person to help write documentation? Maybe. Am I the right person to help make this better for developers? Probably. But fundamentally, everybody's got their own talents, and I really want to make sure that we're actually using them to the best ability as we can. So obviously I've covered a lot here, and you've heard about things that are happening, and there's a lot of vaporware here. What are we going to actually achieve? Well, by the end of this year, I want to make sure that we've got a workable funding mechanism that allows us to develop and issue grants, allows the board to be able to pick a strategic direction and actually fund some things to get done. All too often in the past at OWASP, it was always, no, you can't do that. And it was always some other reason why someone couldn't get paid or someone couldn't do this or that. We need to remove those no's and make it yes if. And what I mean by that is we are a not-for-profit. We actually have to live by the IRS's funding rules. And some of the tabs you might have seen me close as I was coming to share my screen, we're actually looking at the IRS's expense policy guidelines. It's one of those things where we tread a very, very fine line between spending not enough on our mission and then being open to abuse because we're not doing the right thing. We need to develop programs to actually do this core funding, and then we need to find people to help fund it. It's not a bottomless pit of money. The days of the past where events funded everything at OWASP, they are gone. With COVID, it's shown us that that is a very weak approach. We need projects to support themselves. And to do that, we need to be able to go back to our basics. What is it about projects that made OWASP famous? And I think at the time, we were incredibly relevant to the AppSec industry as it matured. But now the AppSec industry is quite mature, and now we need to go back and actually look at our roots and say, how do we help developers build better code? There's always going to be bugs. You will always have bugs in code. There's just no way of avoiding it whatsoever. But if there is a way that we as OWASP can advance the state of security by doing research and development, assisting large projects, assisting frameworks, getting grants out there so project leaders can actually take the time to do some work. We are working on a grant at the moment for the ASVS leader to make a more concrete version of the ASVS for a very, very large organization. And you'll know them very, very well. And it may end up being the secure coding checklist that is used to evaluate apps in an app store that is used by 70+% of the world. So what I'm trying to get at here is that we can have a huge impact for a little bit of money if only we were able to say yes to ourselves, and this is where we need to go. So I know I've dumped a lot on you and I've got a lot of what ifs, and I'm like, how do we get people to actually contribute? I think chapter meetings are a core element of learning about projects. I really want to get the monthly slides that we prepare to actually point out a project that's looking for assistance so that everybody who holds a chapter meeting will learn about that. Or maybe we can put a spotlight out, like every couple of months, we can say, here is a new project that is actually looking for help, but by the way, check out this great new project. And at the moment, we're not doing a great job of that. And I think we can improve a great deal. I'm always open to suggestions. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that what we've done in the past got us to a certain point, but to get us to the next level, we absolutely 100%, we must evolve our approach, and our policies must evolve to enable it. To do that, we need to make sure that we are compliant with US and EU fundraising. We can lose our tax exemption. Purple Team is a perfect example. If we're running a project, this is currently a commercial service, and if we take over that commercial service and provide that for a donation or a fee, we could easily lose our tax exemption because we're running a commercial purpose. But if we treat it like a merch donation, then we won't. And there's lots of little gotchas like that. So, it's not easy for us to navigate these waters, and we need to be able to say with some certainty, yes, we can do this, or no, that's not going to work for us. We'll help a different way. But we can't just say yes to everything. We're still a small organization. We only have one person working on projects in the staff. Two if you include me, but I don't work on it full time. We only have one person supporting all of our 5,700 members. I mean, you've got to realize that we're a very small organization stretched very thin. So we do rely upon volunteerism. We need leaders to step up. It's like one of those things where if you're actually volunteering to walk a dog or dogs at an animal shelter, you're going to be expecting to walk dogs. You're not going to be expecting to get a free dog. You might get a free dog. You probably won't get free dog food. But what I'm trying to say is that there are things that an animal shelter needs and wants, and there's things that they just can't do, and it's actually not worth it to them to accept every single thing. So what I'm trying to get across here is that we need to navigate these waters in combination with our community. There's so many things we could do that are not OWASP-like and would break our community ethos. There's so many things that we should be doing to advance our mission, and going in that needle, threading that needle will be very, very difficult. But in the meantime, as a call to action, I would really like you to go to the OWASP.org, go to project, browse projects, maybe have a look at this diagram that shows you all of the different things. See if there's anything there that you find interesting. Go have a look at the project. For example, the cheat sheet series has lots of helpers. We get lots and lots of contributions, and it's an amazing, amazing resource. It basically tells you exactly how to do a lot of different tasks. For example, here is a Docker security cheat sheet. I mean, it gives you concrete examples of how to actually make sure the Docker is secure. And most people don't even know, well, I wouldn't say most people, but most developers are unaware of the cheat sheets. But if you actually type in OWASP password, you'll get a cheat sheet. And that's one of the things that I'm really proud of, is that our SEO is so great because our content is actually so good. There's so many projects such as the cheat sheet series that have got lots and lots of people doing work on it. And there's so many projects that are fantastic that need a lot of help, that are difficult to work on, that, for example, WebGoat really hasn't been maintained for many, many years, but we still need a good training program for Java. We have a good one for Node.js and Juice Shop, but WebGoat was how I learned some of the trade. Security Shepherd is a mobile one. We need people to come out and say, I think if you had this tool and it worked, and it was able to be used directly by our developers, we would see a lot more adoption. So do go and have a look at all of our different projects. There's hundreds of projects, unfortunately, and we haven't mapped them all. We've just mapped the ones that are the most common, that get a lot of effort. These testing guides, for example, we need to evolve those on a regular basis. They also need to be aligned with the ASVS and the NASVS and all the other SVSs. So that's a lot of work, and we don't have a lot of helpers at the moment. I think it'd be ideal if we could get more people involved, more people helping with funding, and more people aware of what projects we actually do have. Maybe we've got something that you can actually do or use straight away. So talking about flagships, just real brief, I am aware of the time. These flagship projects are evaluated on a regular basis. For example, AMAS is a fingerprinting and discovery tool, and it does it incredibly quickly. So if you've got a very large corporate network, you'll want to look at AMAS because it'll help you identify your applications and where they live and what's happening. Defect Dojo, I don't know if many of you have actually seen this, but this essentially is a vulnerability management tool. Everybody has vulnerabilities to look after. And so this is one of those things where, we have lots of great stuff, but only if you knew that it actually exists and you run it up and test it out and try it for yourself. And if it's too difficult for you to actually try, then you're not going to. SAM is one of our older projects. It's fantastic. If you want to identify what gaps you've got in your software development maturity lifecycle, this is a really good way of doing it. You can also use BSIM, which is a measurement tool, but it also gives you SAM is actually a little bit better in some ways because it actually allows you to build on top of this and say, hey, you're missing training, or hey, you don't have any architecture requirements. A lot of people have got rid of their enterprise architects, and all of a sudden things are sort of hanging together by threads and it's really fragile. So a lot of the time, you're missing something really key. This is an older, very mature product. Definitely give it a go. And quite frankly, I think it's one of the best out there for making sure that if you're telling an organization like, for example, Apache Software Foundation or the Log4j developers, here, where are you at the moment? Let's find out where you want to be. And then we develop a gap analysis and then you simply work out, okay, what are we going to do in the future? That can help look at the bigger picture and actually help very, very concretely in the shortest possible way. So the mod security rule set here is a WAF. It's free. The vast majority of commercial WAFs are built upon mod security and the OWASP core rule set. Most people don't know that, but one of our major funders for mod security is actually one of those WAF vendors, because they do acknowledge that they use this as the basis of their product. So what I'm trying to get across here is that we've got awesome world-class tools that are available to anyone for free. But if you've ever worked on mod security, you'll know writing rules is extraordinarily difficult. You need to understand the entire end-to-end request, response, everything, and then be able to write rules that the mod security engine can actually work on. Those guys have actually worked on getting funding for themselves, and they now have a monthly stipend that they can use to provide support. And so every month, one of them is on call for someone who might need, a rule to be implemented, or this thing is blocking my traffic. How do I fix that? So they're getting a small amount of money every month to actively maintain the core rule set. And that's exactly what we want. We want to get to a position where, given enough industry support, I'd love to see people working full-time on projects. I really would. We don't have anybody working that way at the moment, except for possibly Simon or Sion, who actually works on Zap, but he works at Stackhawk on Stackhawk's product, which is Zap related. So again, I'd really love to see a point in the time where we could actually afford to hire as contractors some of the leaders, but we're not there yet. That's a fair few years away, but I'd like to set the foundations of that going right now. Now, I don't know when the meeting is supposed to end. I do want to leave time for questions. I see a couple of things in chat. Okay. I am finally seeing that my microphone is very soft. Let me just. Hopefully you heard me.
Yes, we did. I
Okay.
have one question, actually. Are these projects entirely related to AppSec? So if I'm not actively a developer, how can I help? My profession is more focused on security compliance aspect. How can I help with these projects?
Okay, we have, like SAM, for example, is a GRC type of thing. So we need people who understand the privacy and the GRC aspects of things. One of the things that I'm a big believer in, I've actually had open discussions with Safecode and a couple of others, is we need to have the same requirements as they do. Because as a compliance person, I used to do that at KPMG. If you've got like things you've got to do for PCI, and then you've got things you've got to do for OWASP, and then you've got things you've got to do for the local government, it just doubles or triples your work. If we can actually eliminate a lot of this double handling and get to a generally agreed security principles, I think it would help a great deal. And so people with your experience and background are absolutely needed. Like if you can actually identify differences of opinion amongst different OWASP standards or implementations and say, well, can we have those together and maybe lead a discussion about what it should be? I think it'll make a great deal of difference. And so even if you don't code, we need a lot of help with documentation projects. And I think GRC and architecture is one of those areas where we're a little light on. SAM is excellent, it's a heavy hitter, but we don't have many things like SAM. So give it a look at. I think it's going to be really quite interesting.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anyone else has a question, please unmute yourself and ask the question. If your mic is not working, feel free to just type in the question in the chat box. In reality, we were actually trying to discuss to see who had worked with any of these projects and used it at their work. So we were leading that discussion before you joined. So.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I mean, I've used so many of them. When I was doing training at my previous firm, I would use JuiceShop religiously. It was actually a part of the course.
Mm-hmm.
I would use Zap as the tool, not Burp Suite. Even though they might be using Burp Suite, I wanted to demonstrate the power of our tools. And so to a certain degree, you know, obviously I've helped contribute to the OWASP top 10 of the ASVS for some time. I obviously have used those in the past. I actually used the ASVS as my secure coding checklist when I was doing code reviews and pen tests.
Okay.
It's actually a really good way of making sure you've covered the bases.
Okay. All right. Anyone with questions for Andrew? Aiden, I know you
Edmund,
always.
I just want to make a comment.
Go ahead, Sasha.
So we've used ASVS in LA County, and thank you for your efforts on that. Really appreciate it. We've sort of, after chatting with a few people, I know it's a lot to digest, and a lot of times when people first see it, they go, "Oh my God, I can't do all this at once." And I was encouraged by some other folks in OWASP to just, go through it, and we kind of pared it down, right, as a first step. Take some of the controls and make that part of our requirements. And we want to scale up from there and add more controls when folks sort of get accustomed to it. But it's been helpful.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that it's getting used. We actually, a government agency from a European country gave us the API chapter because they actually looked at the ASVS in context and said, we need something like that for APIs. And then they donated it to us. So if you've got any improvements, do log a GitHub issue. And we are looking at GitHub ASVS version 5 at the moment. We're trying to simplify level 1 to make it a lot simpler. The original ASVS 1.0 was designed to be the 20% of things you need to do to get 80% of the way there. And it was a lot shorter. And was it the right 20%? I don't think so. And it crept up, and it's now quite comprehensive. And it's a little bit daunting to actually implement level 1 even. And so we are trying to figure out how do we make it more consumable. And I think honestly, with tools like SKF, it'll be a lot easier for people to actually say, yes, I need to address this particular issue in my code base. And if there's only like 20 or 30 things in level 1, it's going to be a lot easier to work with. There was a question here. I'm a student and I don't have a lot of experience. What do you suggest for me? What I would suggest is go to our Slack. There is a projects chapter. So there's a projects channel, and just reach out and say, hey, who's looking for some assistance at the moment? You'd be surprised how quickly you pick things up. The best way, I'm a very kinesthetic learner. I learn by doing. I don't know if that's your learning style or not. I recently watched a video that says that learning styles are bunkum, but that's okay. I do find that if I do something, I'm going to learn it quicker. So if you want to get into coding, there is heaps of coding things. Glenn is actually currently still working on the next version of SKF. He may need help just to get things across. If you want to get into Java, I would, SKF, by the way, is in Python and a lot of DevOps stuff. If you want to get into Java, I would suggest reaching out to the folks who are doing Zap. That's written in Java. It's a desktop application, which is sort of rare today. If you are interested in doing Node.js, which is a very marketable skill today, I would suggest getting in contact with Bjorn of the JuiceShop project. There's always new lessons that need to be developed. The documentation needs to be maintained. So even if you don't code quite to the standard right now, you could always assist with writing tests. You could always write, because one of the things about JuiceShop is although it's got hundreds of security vulnerabilities, it's actually one of the most well-tested programs. It's got an end-to-end suite that tests it all, like within about 5 minutes, it can actually do all of the lessons that are actually in Juice Shop. And I haven't completed all of the Juice Shop lessons. There are some level 5 and 6. Yeah, so pop into the projects channel and say, who's looking for some assistance? And then touch base with the leaders. The main thing I would suggest to you though, is don't just choose the first one. Make sure it's something that you find that you'll be passionate about. If you pick up a project that's not quite aligned with your interest, you'll probably drop it sooner or later. But it's a good way to find out about the leaders and if the project's for you.
Wonderful. Any other questions? That's the correct Slack channel, right?
Yeah, there is actually, if you go to, I'm going to pass a link. It actually helps. It's a little bit complicated to join. There is a join the Slack channel. I'm just going to post it. If you go, owas.slack.com will work, but it's a little bit complicated. But if you go to owas.org/about, there is a type in your email address and it will send you an invite. And that's a lot simpler.
Okay.
So there's 2 different ways of doing it. I personally believe the one on the about page is simpler, but could it be easier? Could we have a /Slack that goes directly to that particular form? I'd love to see that. That's the sort of customer experience stuff that we need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
There is an Australia-New Zealand Discord. If you want, I can get you a Discord invite. Give me a tick. I wouldn't say it's an official Discord. It is not, but it is actually run by some Australian chapter leaders. And I cannot, invites are disabled. If you search on Discord for AppSec ANZ, that is probably one of the most trafficked OWASP style Discords. It doesn't have the 13,000 odd people on the main OWASP Slack, but it has got a lot of people. You're only about 5 hours ahead of them, so and 3 hours ahead of New Zealand, so you'll still be able to have good contact with those folks. Yeah, documentation. I work on documentation. I did the developer guide in 2003 to 2005. I did the OWASP top 10 several times. The ASVS, we have a lot of documentation projects, and if you go to the projects area, you can actually search by the different types of projects, and one of those is actually to search for documents. For example, cheat sheet series, obviously the testing guide, the SAM, obviously top 10, the web security testing guide, and there is a lot of other things. The developer guide is in dire need of updating. I really do think there might be a really good use case for turning that into the long form version of the ASVS. I could always introduce you to Stephen Vanderban, who's the current leader of the developer guide. But the web testing guide has stood in for that, but it's actually focused at AppSec professionals. We need something for developers. So yeah, documentation. And you'd be surprised, SKF has a lot of text embedded in it, and it could actually use someone to help write the documentation, because Glenn codes, he uses a lot of the materials, like he has the JSON export of the ASVS, and he imports that obviously, but how best to interpret what it actually says. So again, I would encourage you to go to the OWASP Slack and pop into the projects channel and say, who needs some help?
Great. Any other questions for Andrew? Comments, suggestions, ideas?
And again, I honestly,
Right,
I really do thank you for coming. And quite frankly, if you are interested in having a discussion around the fundraising, I would enjoy having a conversation with you. We're going to try and, we might start with the leaders, but that's a sort of a closed list. It's only for leaders. But I think we need to have this wider conversation with the actual community, because there's going to be funders, there's going to be people who could work on things, there's going to be participants, and there's going to be people who code, and they may not necessarily be leaders. And so we need to, I think, bring this out and talk to everyone about it.
Absolutely, yes. Well, we're a little bit over, and thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate your participation. As I mentioned, please keep an eye on for next month's meeting details. And thank you, Andrew, for presenting. And everyone have a great rest of your day.
No worries. Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. And I apologize again for being late. Bye-bye.
No problem.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.